The courtroom was packed to capacity. Every seat filled, reporters lining the walls, cameras forbidden, but sketch artists working furiously in the back row. Outside the Chicago Federal Courthouse, protesters held signs, some supporting her, others calling for her destruction. Elena Vasquez sat at the defendant's table, her spine straight, her hands folded calmly despite the handcuffs. At 38 years old, she looked both younger and older than her age. Younger in her clear skin and athletic build, older in her eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. The judge, a severe woman in her 60s named Margaret Thornton, surveyed the courtroom before speaking. Ms. Vasquez, you've been convicted on 17 federal counts, including wire fraud, securities fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. The prosecution has recommended 25 years in federal prison. Before I pass sentence, do you wish to make a statement? Elena's attorney, an expensive shark named David Goldman, who'd taken her case pro bono after reading her story, leaned close. You don't have to say anything. We can appeal. I want to speak, Elena said quietly. She stood, her movements fluid despite the restraints. The courtroom fell silent. Your Honor, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the room. Everything the prosecution said about me is true. I defrauded investors of $42 million. I operated a Ponzi scheme for 3 years. I lied, manipulated, and destroyed lives. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her attorney's face went pale. But what the prosecution didn't tell you, what they don't know, is why I did it. They don't know where I came from. They don't know what I survived to get here. They don't know that every dollar I stole from the same people who destroyed my family. And they don't know that I documented everything. Elena reached into her jacket pocket slowly, aware that federal marshals had tensed. She pulled out a USB drive. This contains evidence of crimes far worse than mine. Tax evasion, money laundering, human trafficking, murder, committed by the very investors who are demanding my maximum sentence. I spent 3 years infiltrating their world, earning their trust, and collecting proof that could bring down one of the largest criminal networks in America. She set the USB drive on the table. I'm guilty, Your Honor. Guilty of using their own tactics against them. Guilty of becoming a criminal to catch criminals. Guilty of fighting a war I was never supposed to win. The courtroom erupted. Judge Thornton's gavel cracked like thunder. Order! I will have order! But Elena wasn't finished. She turned to face the cameras, the reporters, knowing her words would be on every news station within the hour. My name is Elena Maria Vasquez. I was born in East Los Angeles to immigrant parents who believed in the American dream. And I'm here to tell you what that dream costs when you're born without money, without connections, without power. I'm here to tell you what it takes to survive when the system is designed for you to fail. Another crack of the gavel. Ms. Vasquez, sit down. I'm here to tell you my story, Your Honor, and I think America needs to hear it. Judge Thornton stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. Very well, Ms. Vasquez. I'll hear your statement. But this better be relevant to sentencing. Elena took a breath. Her attorney might faint. It starts 25 years ago, Elena said, when I was 13 years old and learned that sometimes you have to become a monster to fight monsters. East Los Angeles, 1999. Elena Vasquez was 13 years old and already understood that life wasn't fair. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Boyle Heights with her mother, Carmen, her older sister Sophia, who was 16, and her younger brother Miguel, who was 8. Her father had disappeared 3 years earlier. Not dead, just gone, the way men sometimes left when the weight of poverty crushed them. Carmen worked at a textile factory in downtown LA, one of dozens of sweatshops that operated in legal gray areas, paying immigrant women below minimum wage to produce clothing for major retailers. She worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week and brought home barely enough to cover rent and food. Elena went to Roosevelt High School, where she was one of the smart kids, straight A's, advanced classes, the kind of student teachers pointed to as proof that hard work could overcome circumstances. She believed it too. She believed that if she studied hard enough, got good enough grades, she could get a scholarship to a good college and escape. Sophia wasn't so lucky. She dropped out at 15 to work at the same factory as their mother, adding her paycheck to the family pot. She was beautiful. Long dark hair, warm brown eyes, the kind of smile that made people trust her instantly. Too beautiful for her own good, Carmen worried. Miguel was the baby, all elbows and energy, obsessed with basketball, and already taller than Elena despite being 5 years younger. They were poor, but they were happy. Or at least, they were surviving. That changed on October 15th, 1999. Elena was in her geometry class when the principal's voice came over the intercom. Elena Vasquez, please report to the office immediately. Her stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from the principal's office in the middle of the day. In the office, a police officer waited, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, with kind eyes that had seen too much tragedy. Elena, I need you to come with me. There's been an accident. The textile factory caught fire at 2:47 p.m. The building was old, the wiring faulty, the fire escapes rusted and inadequate. But what turned a dangerous situation into a tragedy was that the exits had been chained shut, a common practice in sweatshops to prevent workers from taking unauthorized breaks or stealing materials. 23 women died in that fire. Carmen Vasquez was one of them. Sophia survived, but with third-degree burns covering 40% of her body. At the hospital, Elena sat beside Sophia's bed, holding her sister's bandaged hand, while social workers discussed their future in hushed tones in the hallway. Miguel cried silently in a plastic chair. A priest had come and gone. Elena, Sophia whispered, her voice raw from smoke inhalation. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let them split us up. Keep Miguel safe, whatever it takes. I promise. But promises were easier to make than keep. The factory owner, a man named Robert Chen, who also owned a dozen other sweatshops across LA, faced 0 criminal charges. The fire was ruled an unfortunate accident. He paid a modest fine for safety violations, and his insurance covered the property damage. The families of the dead women received nothing. Carmen Vasquez had no life insurance, no savings. The apartment lease was in her name, but without her income, they couldn't make rent. Social services wanted to place Miguel in foster care. He was young enough to be adoptable. Sophia, disfigured, in 18 and 3 months, would age out of the system. Elena, at 13, would likely bounce between group homes until she turned 18. We're a family, Elena told the social worker, a burnt-out woman who'd heard it all before. We stay together. Honey, that's not how it works. You need a legal guardian, stable income, suitable housing. Then tell me how to get those things and I'll do it. The social worker looked at her with something like pity. You're 13 years old. You can't work legally. You can't sign a lease. Even if you could, you'd need to make at least $2,000 a month just for basic expenses. The math doesn't work. But Elena had never been good at accepting impossible situations. She dropped out of Roosevelt High School the next week. The teachers protested, They were her star student, destined for college scholarships, throwing away her future. But what future? Her family was being torn apart. She got her first fake ID 3 days later from a kid at school who knew a guy. It said she was 18. It looked real enough for the kind of jobs that didn't look too closely. She started working at a 24-hour diner in Koreatown, the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. because it paid an extra 2 hours an hour. She lied about her age, and the owner, a Korean man who'd immigrated with nothing himself, didn't ask questions when she showed up on time and worked hard. During the day, while Sophia was at physical therapy and Miguel was at school, Elena slept. 3, maybe 4 hours if she was lucky. Then she'd wake up, make dinner, help Miguel with homework, check on Sophia's bandage changes, and head back to the diner. She made about $1,100 a month. Not enough. She got a second job at a laundromat on weekends, then a third job cleaning office buildings at dawn. She was working 90 hours a week, running on caffeine and determination, holding her family together through sheer force of will. It still wasn't enough. The bills piled up, medical bills from Sophia's treatments. Burn care was expensive, even with emergency Medicaid. Rent, food, Miguel needed new shoes. The electricity was getting shut off. Elena was 14 years old and drowning in adult responsibilities. That's when she met Marcus. Marcus Turner ran a pool hall on Cesar Chavez Avenue. He was 42, black, with gray threading through his short hair, and the kind of presence that commanded respect without demanding it. He'd done 2 stretches in prison, one for armed robbery in his 20s, one for assault in his 30s, and had come out determined to live smarter, not harder. Elena met him when she came into his pool hall at 3 a.m. looking for a bathroom. The diner where she worked had plumbing issues, and she was on her break. "We're closed," Marcus said from behind the bar where he was doing books. "I just need to use the restroom. Please, I'll be 30 seconds. He looked at her, really looked, saw a kid trying to pass for 18, but obviously younger, saw exhaustion in eyes that should have been bright, saw someone working multiple jobs and still losing ground. Bathrooms in the back. You want coffee? When she came out, there was a cup waiting, along with a sandwich he'd pulled from somewhere. "I don't need charity," Elena said, even though her stomach growled at the sight of food. "It's not charity. It's business. You look like someone who's trying to survive, and I respect that. But you're doing it wrong." "Excuse me?" Marcus leaned back against the bar. "You're working 3 jobs, probably sleeping 4 hours a night, burning yourself out for maybe $1,500 a month. That math doesn't work long term. You'll collapse, or you'll get caught working underage, or something will break. So you need to work smarter." "And you're gonna teach me?" Elena's voice dripped skepticism. "Maybe. Depends if you're as smart as you look. Sit down, eat. Let me tell you about the real world." Elena should have walked out, should have gone back to her shift at the diner. But something in Marcus's tone made her stay. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was just that someone was finally treating her like an adult capable of making decisions. She sat, she ate, and she listened. "The game," Marcus said, "is rigged. You figured that out already, or you wouldn't be here at 14 working 3 jobs. The system is designed to keep people like us, poor people, brown people, black people, right where we are, working ourselves to death for scraps while rich people get richer. So what do I do about it? You learn their rules, and then you break them smart. Not illegal, or at least not illegal enough to get caught. You find the angles they don't watch, you exploit the gaps in their system. You stop playing fair because the game was never fair to begin with." Over the next 3 hours, until Elena had to leave for her dawn shift cleaning offices, Marcus taught her about the real economy, the cash economy, the gray market economy, The world that existed in the spaces between legal and illegal. Card games in the back rooms of bars where rich kids from USC lost hundreds on bad hands. Pawn shops that would pay cash for goods without asking questions. Consulting that was really information brokering. Bookkeeping for businesses that preferred to keep 2 sets of books. "You've got a sharp mind," Marcus said. "I can tell. That's your real asset. Not your time, not your muscle, your brain. You use that, you can make more in a week than those 3 jobs pay in a month." "And what do you get out of teaching me?" Marcus smiled. "Honestly, I see my daughter in you. She'd be about your age if she'd lived. Leukemia took her when she was 12. I see you trying to survive, trying to hold your family together. And I think, maybe I can help someone else's kid do what I couldn't do for mine." Elena didn't know whether to believe him, but she was desperate enough to take the chance. She started small. Marcus introduced her to a poker game in Chinatown where businessmen played for serious money. They saw a young woman, assumed she was decoration, and underestimated her completely. Elena had never played poker before, but she spent 2 weeks watching YouTube videos, reading strategy guides, and practicing with Marcus. She learned to count cards, read tells, calculate odds in her head. Her first night at the table, she walked in with $300 borrowed from Marcus. She walked out with $1,200. She didn't win because she was the best player. She won because she was underestimated. Because men saw a young Latino woman and assumed she was stupid, because they couldn't imagine she was counting cards while smiling sweetly and asking naive questions. She took that $1,200 and paid 2 months' rent. Then she went back and did it again. Within 3 months, Elena had quit 2 of her 3 jobs. She kept the diner job because it gave her plausible income to report, but her real money came from the games Marcus connected her to. She was smart about it. Never won too much at one table, never came back too frequently, spread her action across different games, different venues, paid taxes on her diner income like a good citizen, lived modestly so no one asked questions about where a teenager was getting money. And she studied. While other kids her age were in high school, Elena was getting an education in economics, psychology, and the art of controlled risk. She read books about game theory, behavioral economics, negotiation tactics. She taught herself accounting and basic law. Sophia got better. The burns would scar her for life, but the skin grafts took, and the risk of infection passed. Miguel stayed in school, got his shoes, got 3 meals a day. They stayed together as a family. Elena had won the first battle, but she was about to learn that winning attracted attention. Elena was 16 when she met the men who would change her life forever. She'd been playing the circuit for 2 years now, had built up a bankroll of about $40,000, carefully hidden in 3 different locations. She'd moved the family to a better apartment in Lincoln Heights. Sophia was working part-time at a boutique, her scars hidden by carefully applied makeup. Miguel was thriving in school, playing on the basketball team. They weren't rich, but they were stable. Elena was careful, smart, disciplined. She learned to read rooms, read people, stay under the radar. But you can't stay invisible forever when you're winning. The game was in a private room above a club in West Hollywood. Higher stakes than Elena usually played, but Marcus had vouched for her, and the buy-in was $5,000. The kind of money that could set them up for 6 months if she played it right. The players were different from her usual tables. Older, wealthier, more dangerous. She recognized one of them, a man named Victor Reyes, who owned nightclubs across LA and was rumored to have connections to drug trafficking. Elena almost walked out, but $5,000 buy-in meant pots of $20, $30, sometimes $50,000. That was life-changing money. She stayed, and she won. Not big, she was too smart for that, but she walked out with $18,000 after a 6-hour session, and she felt the weight of certain stares following her out the door. Marcus was waiting in the parking lot. You need to be careful with these guys. I was careful. I didn't win too much. You won at all. That's the problem. These aren't businessmen playing for fun, Elena. This is how they launder money. They don't like wild cards at their tables, especially not young women who might be smarter than they look. So what do? You lay low for a while. Take a break from the games. Let them forget about you. But Elena couldn't afford to lay low. Sophia needed dental work. Her teeth had been damaged in the fire. Miguel wanted to go to a basketball camp that summer. The rent was going up. She went back to the game 2 weeks later. Victor Reyes was there again, along with 2 other men she didn't recognize. They played differently this time. Aggressive, testing her, pushing her to reveal whether she was lucky or skilled. Elena stayed calm. She folded more than she played. She deliberately made a few bad calls to appear less skilled, but she still walked away up $6,000. In the parking lot, a black Mercedes pulled up beside her before she could reach her car. The back window rolled down. Victor Reyes smiled at her. Elena Vasquez, you're good at cards. I've been lucky. Luck doesn't win 7 sessions in a row. Skill does. He opened the door. Get in. Let's talk business. Every instinct screamed at Elena to run, but she was 16 years old, alone in a parking lot at 2 a.m., and Victor Reyes had 2 men in the front seat who looked like they ate nails for breakfast. So she got in. The Mercedes drove to a 24-hour diner in Silver Lake, neutral ground, public enough to feel safe. Victor ordered coffee for both of them and got straight to the point. You're skilled, young, smart, and you're not scared easily. That's rare. I could use someone like you. For what? I run several businesses, most of them legal, some of them less so. I need people who can move in different worlds. High society, street level, business meetings, backroom deals. You've got a face that people trust and a mind that most people underestimate. That's valuable. I'm not interested in working for anyone, Elena said carefully. You think you're independent? You're playing in games I allow you to play in, kid. Every room you've been in for the last 6 months, I've gotten a report. You're only alive because you're good enough that I'm curious about you instead of concerned about you. The threat was clear. Elena forced herself to stay calm. What do you want from me? Information. You're young, attractive, non-threatening. You can go places my usual people can't. High-end restaurants, corporate events, charity galas. Rich people trust girls like you. Sweet, innocent, struggling. They tell you things they shouldn't. They underestimate you. And you remember everything you hear. You want me to spy. I want you to be observant. There's a difference. You attend events, you listen, you report back what you hear. I pay you $5,000 a month plus expenses. That's more than you're making now, and it's a lot safer than taking money off people at poker tables. Elena's mind raced. $5,000 a month was serious money, but it was also serious risk. And if I say no? Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you go back to your card games, and eventually you win at the wrong table or lose at the wrong time, and something unfortunate happens. Or maybe something unfortunate happens to your family. Your sister Sophia? She works at that boutique on Sunset, right? Your brother Miguel plays basketball at Lincoln High? Elena's blood went cold. Leave them out of this. That's entirely up to you. Work with me, everyone stay safe. Refuse me, well, LA's a dangerous city. So Elena said yes, because she had no choice, because she had a family to protect, because at 16 years old, she was already learning that sometimes survival meant compromising pieces of your soul. She became Victor Reyes's informant. She attended parties, charity events, gallery openings, anywhere rich people gathered and talked loosely. She wore designer dresses that Victor provided, learned to drink wine without getting drunk, perfected the art of appearing charming but forgettable. And she listened to business deals, to affairs, to secrets, to crimes.
She reported everything to Victor, who used the information for blackmail, insider trading, strategic business moves, and Elena hated every minute of it, hated herself for being complicit, hated that she'd become the thing she'd tried to escape. But her family was safe. Sophia was happy, Miguel was thriving. That was all that mattered. Until the night she met Jonathan Crawford, and everything changed again.
Elena was 18 when she met Jonathan Crawford at a charity gala for the LA Children's Hospital. She had been working for Victor for almost 2 years, had become one of his most valuable assets because she was smart enough to recognize important information and disciplined enough to never get caught. She'd also been quietly documenting everything. Every piece of information she gathered, every crime she became aware of, every name and face and connection. She kept encrypted files hidden in 3 different locations and backed up on drives buried in places no one would think to look. She didn't know yet what she'd do with the information, but she knew that someday she might need leverage. Someday she might need an escape route. The gala was at the Beverly Hilton, black tie, $5,000 a plate. Elena wore a midnight blue Vera Wang gown that Victor had provided, her hair swept up, diamonds at her neck that were probably real given Victor's tendency toward authenticity in his image management. She was there to observe a real estate developer named Marcus Steinberg, who Victor suspected was cutting him out of a downtown development deal. Her job was to listen, gather intelligence, and report back. But then she met Jonathan Crawford. He was 38, 20 years her senior, a billionaire tech entrepreneur who'd made his fortune in telecommunications before diversifying into real estate, venture capital, and philanthropic foundations. He was tall, distinguished, with silver threading through his dark hair, and the kind of confidence that came from never having to prove anything. He approached her at the bar while she was waiting for champagne. "You look bored," he said. "I'm not bored. I'm observing." "Observing what?" "How many carats of diamonds are in this room? How many affairs are happening behind closed doors? How many people are pretending to care about sick children while really just networking?" Jonathan laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. "That's refreshingly honest. Most people at these events pretend everything is genuine. Most people at these events are lying. I prefer accuracy." They talked for 3 hours. Jonathan was brilliant, well-read, genuinely interested in her opinions. He didn't patronize her or dismiss her because she was young. He engaged with her ideas, challenged her assumptions, treated her like an intellectual equal. When he asked for her number, Elena hesitated. She was here on business, and Victor wouldn't appreciate distractions. But something about Jonathan felt different, important. She gave him her number. They had their first date 3 days later, dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Santa Monica, the kind of place where Jonathan could be anonymous. He didn't try to impress her with wealth. He asked about her life, her thoughts, her dreams. Elena lied about most of it. She said she was a graduate student at UCLA studying economics. Close enough to the truth that she could fake the details. She said her family was from LA, that her mother had passed away, that she was helping support her siblings. That part was true. Jonathan told her about his life. Divorced twice, no children, built his company from nothing in his 20s, sold it for billions in his 30s, and now spent his time investing in ventures he found interesting and supporting causes he believed in. "What do you believe in?" Elena asked. "I believe that people deserve second chances. That circumstances of birth shouldn't determine destiny. That intelligent, driven people should have opportunities regardless of where they come from." He was either completely sincere or an excellent liar. Elena couldn't tell which. They kept seeing each other. Dinners, gallery openings, long conversations that stretched past midnight. Jonathan introduced her to his world, not the glitzy celebrity world, but the real power world. Boardrooms, investment meetings, the people who actually shaped policy and moved markets. And Elena learned. God, how she learned. She learned how real wealth worked. Not drug money and laundered cash, but legitimate billions that created more billions through strategic investment and careful networking. She learned that there were levels of crime. street-level crime that got people arrested, mid-level crime that Victor represented, dangerous but manageable, and then top-level crime, the kind committed by billionaires and politicians, so sophisticated and well-protected that it was practically legal. Jonathan didn't know he was teaching her. He thought he was sharing his world with a brilliant young woman he was falling for. And maybe he was falling for her. He certainly seemed to care, seemed genuine in his affection. Elena told herself she was using him, gathering information, building a network, preparing for whatever came next. But the truth was more complicated. She was starting to care about him too, starting to imagine a different life, starting to believe that maybe she could escape the trap she had fallen into. And then she discovered what Jonathan Crawford really was.
Elena discovered the truth by accident. She was at Jonathan's Malibu house one weekend, a stunning modern home perched on the cliffs overlooking the Pacific. Jonathan had been called away on business, and Elena was alone, supposedly working on a paper for her fictional graduate program. Instead, she was snooping. Not maliciously, just curiously. She'd been trained by Victor to notice things, to gather information, and old habits died hard. Jonathan's home office was impressive. Leather furniture, walls of books, multiple computer screens. The door was open, the computers unlocked. He trusted her completely. Elena sat at his desk, just looking. A calendar with business meetings, folders with investment portfolioes, nothing unusual. And then she noticed something. A folder labeled Legacy Holdings with a subfolder marked Overseas Operations. Legacy Holdings was Jonathan's primary investment vehicle, the company through which he controlled his various business interests. Elena had heard him mention it hundreds of times. She opened the folder. Inside were detailed financial records, wire transfers to companies in the Cayman Islands, Panama, Singapore, millions of dollars moving through shell corporations with deliberately opaque ownership structures. Elena's stomach tightened. This was textbook money laundering. She dug deeper, her hands shaking slightly. Found documents detailing investments in manufacturing operations in Southeast Asia. Clicked on one, a factory in Cambodia, producing textiles. The factory specifications looked familiar, very familiar. With growing dread, Elena opened another document, then another, factory after factory. In Cambodia, in Bangladesh, in Vietnam, in Pakistan. All of them sweatshops, unsafe working conditions, wages below poverty level, exits chained shut to prevent workers from leaving. Just like the factory where her mother had died. Elena felt like she couldn't breathe. She opened more files, found connections to the same corporations that had owned the LA factory, found correspondence with Robert Chen, the man who'd owned the building where Carmen Vazquez burned to death. Legacy Holdings had a minority stake in Chen's operations, had provided financing, had known about the safety violations and done nothing, because fixing them would cut into profit margins. Jonathan Crawford, philanthropist, advocate for second chances, the man Elena was falling in love with, had indirectly profited from her mother's death. Elena wanted to vomit, wanted to scream, wanted to destroy everything in the office. Instead, she stayed calm, methodical. She pulled out a USB drive and began copying everything, every document, every financial record, every piece of evidence. It took 3 hours. When she was done, she had proof that Jonathan Crawford's fortune, the one he used to fund hospitals and scholarship programs and political campaigns, was built in part on exploiting the same kind of desperate immigrant workers Carmen Vazquez had been. Elena closed everything, wiped her search history, and left the office exactly as she had found it.
Then she walked down to the beach and stood staring at the ocean while her world rearranged itself around this new, terrible knowledge. She could leave, take the evidence, go to the authorities, destroy Jonathan Crawford. But she'd learned enough by now to know that wouldn't work. Men like Jonathan didn't go to prison. They had lawyers, they had connections, they had politicians on their payroll and regulators who owed them favors. Exposing him would accomplish nothing except putting a target on her back. Unless she was smarter about it. Elena stood on that beach for 2 hours thinking, planning, calculating. She'd spent 3 years learning how the criminal world worked from Victor. She'd spent a year learning how the legitimate power world worked from Jonathan. Now she understood something crucial. They were the same world, just different levels of the same corrupt system. Victor Reyes and Jonathan Crawford were ultimately working for the same people, a network of wealthy investors who profited from crime, exploitation, and suffering while maintaining respectable public faces. And Elena had information on all of them. From both sides, she had Victor's criminal network mapped out. She had Jonathan's financial corruption documented. She had leverage. For the first time since she was 13 years old, Elena Vasquez had power. The question was, what would she do with it?
Elena didn't confront Jonathan. She didn't expose him. She didn't run. Instead, she became exactly what he thought she was, a devoted girlfriend who believed in his public persona. She smiled at his dinners. She accompanied him to his events. She made love to him in his Malibu house while secretly planning his destruction. And she used his resources to build something unprecedented. Jonathan wanted to mentor her. He encouraged her to start a business, offered to provide seed funding. He wanted to help her become successful in her own right. So Elena proposed an investment firm, a small boutique operation that would cater to high net worth individuals looking for alternative investment strategies. She'd manage their money, identify opportunities, generate returns. Jonathan loved the idea. He funded it with $5 million and introduced her to his network of wealthy friends, all looking for someone smart and hungry to help grow their fortunes. Elena called the company Mariposa Capital, Butterfly Capital, because she was about to undergo a metamorphosis. Over the next 3 years, from age 19 to 22, Elena built Mariposa Capital into a successful operation. She was brilliant at investing. She had been studying markets and reading people since she was 14. She generated legitimate returns for her clients. She built trust. She built reputation. And the entire time, she was documenting everything. Every client conversation where they bragged about tax evasion, every tip she received about insider trading, every connection between her investors and Victor's criminal network, every link back to Jonathan's overseas operations. She built a map, a complete, detailed map of how money moved through the corrupt ecosystem that connected street-level crime, mid-level racketeering, and high-level corporate malfeasance. She identified the network's weak points, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the bribes, the blackmail, the murders. Yes, murders. Elena discovered that 2 years before she met him, Jonathan had ordered the death of a journalist who was investigating his overseas factories, made it look like a carjacking. The journalist's name was Maria Santos. She'd been 26 years old. Elena found communications about it buried in encrypted files. She found payment records to the man who'd done it, a professional who'd been paid through 3 layers of shell companies, but who ultimately drew his money from legacy holdings. That discovery changed something in Elena. She had been planning to destroy these people financially, to expose their crimes and let the system punish them. But the system wouldn't punish them. The system protected them. So, Elena decided to become the punishment herself.
She spent 6 months planning. She identified the 37 investors who formed the core of the network, the ones with the most money, the most connections, the most blood on their hands. She studied their investments, their habits, their weaknesses. And then she built a Ponzi scheme. Not a traditional one. Elena was too smart for that. She built something far more elegant. She approached her existing clients with an opportunity, a private fund that would invest in emerging markets, Southeast Asian manufacturing, African minerals, South American agriculture. High risk, high reward. Minimum investment, $1 million. The pitch was perfect. She had a track record of returns. She had Jonathan's endorsement. She had the respect of the community. Why wouldn't they invest? 28 of the 37 invested immediately. The other 9 took some convincing, but within 6 months, she had them all. $42 million. All from men who'd built their fortunes on exploitation, corruption, and murder. Elena didn't invest a penny of it in legitimate opportunities. Instead, she created an elaborate fiction, fake portfolio reports, doctored bank statements, quarterly returns that showed steady growth. Meanwhile, the money moved through shell companies Elena had created, through accounts in her name but with no direct connection to Mariposa Capital, into investments that would be impossible to trace or recover. She bought property in countries with strong asset protection laws. She purchased art and jewelry through intermediaries. She converted cash into cryptocurrency and moved it through anonymizing networks. She made donations to legitimate charities under false names. Every dollar stolen, she stole strategically. Some went to rebuilding her plan. Some went to her family, Sophia's medical bills, Miguel's college fund, a trust that would support them forever. Some went to victims, anonymous donations to families of sweatshop workers, to organizations fighting human trafficking, to the families of people her investors had destroyed. And crucially, she documented everything. Every crime her investors had committed that led to their investments, every dollar she had taken and where it went, every connection in the network. She built an airtight legal case proving that her investors' wealth was itself criminal, that their claims to the money she had stolen were legally invalid, that she'd fraudulated criminals with criminal proceeds. It took 3 years. 3 years of smiling at the men she hated, 3 years of pretending to be Jonathan's devoted girlfriend while destroying his life's work, 3 years of playing the role of trusted advisor while preparing to burn down the entire system. And then, on a Tuesday morning in October 2024, Elena Vasquez turned herself in to the FBI. The FBI field office in Los Angeles was not expecting Elena Vasquez. She walked in at 9 a.m., impeccably dressed in a gray suit, carrying a leather briefcase. She approached the front desk and said calmly, "My name is Elena Vasquez. I'd like to confess to wire fraud, securities fraud, and racketeering. I have evidence of numerous federal crimes committed by 37 individuals, and I'm prepared to cooperate fully." Within 30 minutes, she was in an interview room with 3 agents and 2 prosecutors. Within 2 hours, she'd laid out the entire scheme. The Ponzi operation, the $42 million, the network of investors. And then she handed them the USB drives. "Everything you need is here," Elena said. "Financial records proving my investors obtained their wealth through criminal enterprises. Communications showing their involvement in money laundering, tax evasion, human trafficking, and murder. A complete map of how their network operates, and documentation of every dollar I took and where it went." The lead prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Kim, looked at the drives, then at Elena. "You're confessing to crimes and providing evidence against your co-conspirators?" "They weren't my co-conspirators. They were my marks. I defrauded criminals. I stole money that was already stolen. And I documented everything because I knew I'd need to prove it." "That's not how the law works, Ms. Vasquez. You can't just..." "I know exactly how the law works. I studied it for 3 years specifically for this moment. I'm guilty of fraud, but my victims are also criminals. And the money I stole has been partially recovered. I'm prepared to return what's left after expenses. The question is whether you want to prosecute me for stealing from criminals or whether you want to use what I've given you to take down one of the largest criminal networks in California. The prosecutors and agents looked at each other. Elena had put them in an impossible position. She was openly confessing to serious crimes, but she was also handing them the biggest case of their careers. Why? Agent Marcus Rodriguez asked. Why do this? You could have just disappeared with the money. You could be on a beach somewhere untouchable. Elena's expression hardened. Because when I was 13 years old, my mother burned to death in a sweatshop fire. The building owner faced no consequences. The investors who financed his operation and knew about the safety violations faced no consequences. They got richer while my family was destroyed. I leaned forward. I spent 15 years learning how their world works, learning their language, becoming one of them. And then I took their money and exposed their crimes. I'm here because someone needs to face consequences. If that's me, fine, but I'm taking them down with me. The room was silent for a long moment. We'll need to verify everything on these drives, Sarah Kim finally said. But if what you're saying is true, if you can really prove all of this, I can and I will. I'll testify. I'll explain every connection. I'll help you understand the network. But I have 3 conditions. You're not in a position to make demands, Ms. Vasquez. Yes, I am. Because without me, you have nothing. With me, you have everything. So here are my conditions. 1, my family gets immunity. My sister and brother had nothing to do with any of this. 2, the money that went to victims and charities stays there. You can recover what's left, but you don't touch the reparations. 3, when this goes to trial, I get to tell my story. All of it. Publicly. Sarah Kim shook her head. No prosecutor would agree to. Then you're not thinking creatively enough, Elena interrupted. You want headlines? You want a career-making case? Give me a platform, and I'll give you a story that will be on every news network in America. A young Latina woman who infiltrated and destroyed a criminal network. David versus Goliath. The justice system actually working for once. It's perfect. Agent Rodriguez almost smiled. You're either brilliant or insane. I'm both. Do we have a deal? They made her sweat for 3 days. Then they agreed mostly. Her family would be protected, the charitable donations would be left alone, and she'd get to make a statement at sentencing. The FBI raids happened simultaneously across Los Angeles. 37 locations, homes, offices, private clubs, federal agents seizing computers, documents, freezing accounts. Jonathan Crawford was arrested at his Malibu house at 6 a.m. The news showed him in handcuffs, his perfect hair disheveled for the first time since Elena had known him. Victor Reyes tried to run, made it as far as Mexico before Interpol picked him up, extradited within a week. One by one, Elena's investors were charged. The evidence was overwhelming. She'd done the FBI's job for them, organizing everything into clear, prosecutable cases. The media went insane. The story had everything: a beautiful criminal mastermind, billionaire villains, stolen millions, dead mothers, and revenge. Elena became infamous. Some called her a hero. Others called her a criminal who was just as bad as the people she'd robbed. The debate raged on cable news, on social media, in op-eds. Elena didn't care about public opinion. She cared about one thing: making sure the truth came out. Her trial was set for 9 months later. Federal prosecutors offered her a plea deal, 15 years in exchange for cooperation. Elena refused. "I'll take my chances with a jury." Her attorney, David Goldman, the one who'd taken her case pro bono because he'd read about her mother's death and was himself the son of sweatshop workers, thought she was crazy. "Elena, you confessed. You documented your own crimes. No jury is going to acquit you." "I don't need acquittal. I need a platform." The trial lasted 6 weeks. The prosecution laid out Elena's crimes in meticulous detail. $42 million in fraud, elaborate deception, years of planning, 17 federal counts. The defense didn't deny anything. Instead, David Goldman did something unprecedented. He put the victims on trial. He brought in evidence of Jonathan Crawford's sweatshops, photographs of factories where workers died, financial records showing bribes paid to inspectors, communications ordering the murder of journalist Maria Santos. He brought in evidence of Victor Reyes's criminal empire, drug trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, murder. He brought in evidence of each of the 37 investors' crimes: tax evasion, fraud, racketeering. Each one proven, documented, undeniable. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Goldman said in his closing argument, "Elena Vasquez is guilty. She has never denied it. She walked into the FBI and confessed. But I ask you to consider who her victims were. These were not innocent investors. These were criminals who built their fortunes on the suffering of people like Elena's mother, people who died in factory fires, people who were trafficked and enslaved, people who were murdered when they got too close to the truth." He paused, letting that sink in. Elena Vasquez stole from criminals using their own money that was already stolen from workers, from taxpayers, from society. She documented their crimes and handed them to federal authorities. Because of her, 37 major criminals are now facing justice. Dozens of victims' families have received compensation. Multiple criminal enterprises have been dismantled. Is she a criminal? Yes. But she's also the only person in this courtroom who had the courage to fight back against a system designed to protect the powerful. She's the only person who made them face consequences. The prosecution's rebuttal was strong. Crime is crime, regardless of who the victim is. Ms. Vasquez is not a hero. She's a sophisticated criminal who committed fraud for personal gain. The jury deliberated for 4 days. When they returned, the 4 women stood and read the verdict. On count 1, wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. Elena didn't flinch. Sophia, sitting behind her, gripped Miguel's hand. On count 2, securities fraud, we find the defendant guilty. All 17 counts. Guilty on all of them. Judge Thornton set sentencing for 2 weeks later. That's when Elena would get to make her statement. Which brought them back to where the story began. Elena standing in the courtroom, the USB drive on the table, her statement shocking the room. Judge Thornton listened to the entire story. 2 hours of testimony about Carmen Vasquez's death, about sweatshops and exploitation, about Victor Reyes and Jonathan Crawford, and about the decision to fight back the only way that seemed possible. When Elena finished, the courtroom was silent. Finally, Judge Thornton spoke. "Ms. Vasquez, what you've described is a remarkable story. A tragedy followed by years of struggle, followed by a complex form of vigilante justice. But you understand that the court cannot endorse private citizens deciding who deserves to be punished and how." "I understand, Your Honor. I'm not asking for endorsement. I'm asking for acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that the system failed my family, that it fails thousands of families every day, that sometimes when the system won't provide justice, People have to create it themselves. The law? The law protected the man who owned the factory where my mother died. The law protected the investors who profited from her death. The law has protected Jonathan Crawford and Victor Reyes and 37 other criminals for decades. The law only started working when I forced it to work by documenting everything and handing it to the FBI. Judge Thornton was quiet for a long moment. You make a compelling point about systemic failures, but you're still asking me to be lenient on someone who committed serious federal crimes. I'm not asking for leniency, Alana said. I'm asking for proportionality. I stole $42 million from criminals and used it to compensate victims and expose crimes. Jonathan Crawford stole the lives of hundreds of workers and got a TED Talk and a hospital named after him. Victor Reyes trafficked human beings and lived in a mansion in Beverly Hills. The question isn't whether I deserve punishment, it's whether my punishment should be proportional to theirs. And what would you consider proportional? Elena took a breath. Time served during this trial, probation, asset forfeiture of everything I gained, and a commitment to continue cooperating with federal authorities to prosecute the remaining members of the network. The prosecution stood up immediately. Your Honor, that's absurd. The sentencing guidelines call for 20 to 25 years. The sentencing guidelines are guidelines, not requirements, and they don't account for the extraordinary circumstances of this case. She looked at Elena for a long moment. Ms. Vasquez, you've presented me with an impossible situation. If I'm lenient, I send a message that fraud is acceptable if the victims are criminals. If I'm harsh, I punish someone who committed crimes that law enforcement failed to discover for decades. Elena met her gaze steadily. Then send the right message, Your Honor. Send the message that when the system fails, when justice is denied, when the powerful exploit the powerless with impunity, someone will fight back. Someone will refuse to accept that the game is rigged. Someone will risk everything to make things right. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Thornton closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and delivered her ruling. Elena Vasquez, you have been convicted of 17 federal counts of fraud and racketeering. The prosecution recommends 25 years. The defense requests probation. I'm going to do something I've never done in 30 years on the bench. I'm going to sentence you to 5 years in federal prison, with credit for the 9 months you've already served during this trial. The remaining 51 months will be suspended, meaning you'll serve no additional prison time provided you complete 5 years of supervised probation and continue cooperating with federal authorities. Gasps erupted through the courtroom. The prosecutors looked stunned. Elena's knees nearly buckled. Additionally, Judge Thornton continued, you will forfeit any remaining assets from your crimes. You will be banned from working in financial services. And you will serve 1,000 hours of community service working with victims of labor trafficking. She banged her gavel once. This sentence may be unconventional, but this case is unconventional. Elena Vasquez committed crimes, but she also exposed a criminal network that law enforcement had failed to penetrate for decades. She documented everything meticulously and handed it to authorities. Because of her, 37 major criminals are now facing justice. Dozens of victims' families have received compensation. Multiple criminal enterprises have been dismantled. I cannot condone vigilante justice, but I also cannot ignore that sometimes the system fails people so completely that they have no choice but to fight back with the only weapons available to them. Elena's weapons were intelligence, patience, and documentation. She used them to spectacular effect. You look at the prosecution, Judge Thornton said. If you want to appeal this sentence, that's your right, but I'll defend it. This woman lost her mother to corporate negligence that went unpunished.
She spent 15 years infiltrating a criminal network. She risked her life to document crimes that might otherwise have gone undiscovered. And she turned herself in rather than disappearing with the money. That shows more integrity than many people I've sentenced to far less time. Another bang of the gavel. Court is adjourned.
5 years later, Elena Vasquez stood on the steps of the Los Angeles Superior Court, finishing her last day of probation. She was 43 years old now, with a few strands of gray in her dark hair and lines around her eyes that came from hard years. But she was free. Her probation officer, a kind woman named Jennifer, who'd actually supported her throughout, shook her hand. "You did it, Elena. 5 years, perfect compliance. I'm proud of you. Thank you for believing in me. What's next for you?" Elena smiled. "Something completely different." Over the past 5 years, while completing her probation and community service, Elena had gone back to school, not to study economics or business, but social work. She'd earned her degree online, passed her licensing exam, and now worked for a nonprofit organization that supported victims of labor trafficking. She used her experience, her knowledge of how criminal networks operated, to help law enforcement identify and dismantle trafficking operations. She helped victims navigate the legal system, find safe housing, rebuild their lives. She made $45,000 a year. It was a fraction of what she'd once commanded. But it was honest work, meaningful work that honored her mother's memory. Sophia was doing well. The scars had faded somewhat with time and treatment. She'd married a good man, a teacher, and they had 2 kids. She worked as a victim advocate, helping burn survivors cope with trauma. Miguel had graduated from UCLA on a basketball scholarship, then gotten his MBA. He worked in corporate social responsibility for a major tech company, using his insider position to push for better labor practices in overseas factories. The family was whole, scarred, but whole. As for the criminals Elena had exposed, the results were mixed. Jonathan Crawford had been convicted on multiple counts, including conspiracy to commit murder in the death of journalist Maria Santos. He was serving 22 years in federal prison. His fortune had been seized, with much of it going to victim compensation funds. Victor Reyes had taken a plea deal, giving up his entire network in exchange for a reduced sentence. He was in witness protection somewhere, his empire destroyed. Of the 37 investors Elena had defrauded, 28 had been convicted on various charges. The trials were still ongoing for the others. The network she had exposed had collapsed completely. The FBI had used her documentation to launch dozens of additional investigations. Hundreds of criminals had been charged. Thousands of victims had received compensation or justice. Elena's case had become famous. Law schools studied it. Ethics professors debated it. Some people called her a hero, others called her a criminal who got lucky. Most people were somewhere in the middle, acknowledging that what she did was wrong, but understanding why she did it. A documentary had been made about her case, The Unbreakable, How One Woman Took Down a Criminal Empire. It had won awards, sparked conversations about systemic inequality and justice system failures. Elena had used her platform wisely. She'd become an advocate for stronger labor protections, for criminal justice reform, for support systems that helped people escape poverty without having to break the law. She testified before Congress twice. She'd written a book, all proceeds going to charity. She had become, despite everything, a voice for people the system had failed. As Elena walked down the courthouse steps on her final day of probation, reporters were waiting. They always were. She'd become a public figure, whether she wanted it or not. "Ms. Vasquez, how does it feel to be free? Do you regret what you did? Would you do it again?" Elena stopped and faced the cameras. She'd learned how to do this over the years, how to use media attention for good. "I don't regret fighting back against people who destroyed my family. I don't regret exposing criminals who'd operated with impunity for decades. I don't regret turning myself in and cooperating with the authorities. But do I regret the methods I used? Yes. I became a criminal to fight criminals. That was wrong, and I paid the price for it. If I could do it over, I'd find a legal way to expose them.
But I also understand that sometimes people in desperate circumstances make desperate choices. And I think the real question isn't about my choices, it's about why the system failed so completely that a teenager felt she had no option to become a criminal to survive. She looked directly at the camera. My mother died because corporations valued profit over safety, because regulators failed to do their jobs, because no one was held accountable. That shouldn't happen in America, but it happens every day. So if you want to judge me, fine, I'm guilty. But also judge the system that created the circumstances that led to my crimes. Judge the billionaires who exploit workers. Judge the politicians who look the other way. Judge the regulators who take bribes. I fought back the only way I knew how. It wasn't legal, but it was effective. And because of what I did, some very bad people are in prison and some victims got justice. That's all I have to say. She walked away from the cameras toward the street where Sophia was waiting in her car. How do you feel? Sophia asked as Elena got in. Elena thought about it. About everything she'd been through. 13-year-old Elena working 3 jobs. 16-year-old Elena playing poker in back rooms. 18-year-old Elena falling for a billionaire who'd profited from their mother's death. 22-year-old Elena building an elaborate fraud to destroy him. And now 43-year-old Elena, free at last. I feel like I can finally breathe, she said. They drove to East LA, to the cemetery where Carmen Vasquez was buried. Elena hadn't visited in months, probation restrictions. But now she could come whenever she wanted. She stood at her mother's grave, Sophia beside her, Miguel on the other side. 3 siblings who'd survived against impossible odds. We made it, Mana. We stayed together. We fought back. We won. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of flowers and fresh-cut grass. Elena closed her eyes and felt, for the first time in 30 years, something like peace. She'd been broken so many times, by poverty, by loss, by the cruelty of a system designed to keep people like her down, by her own choices and compromises. But she'd never stayed broken. She'd adapted, she'd learned, she'd fought. She was, in the truest sense, unbreakable. Not because she'd never been damaged, but because she'd been damaged so many times and kept rebuilding, kept fighting, kept surviving. That was the real victory. Not the criminals she'd exposed, not the money she'd stolen, not even the justice she had achieved. The victory was standing here, alive, free, whole, after everything that should have destroyed her. Come on, Miguel said, putting his arm around her. Let's go home. Elena smiled. Yes, let's go home. They walked back to the car together. 3 survivors, 3 fighters, 3 people who'd refused to let circumstances define their destiny. Behind them, on Carmen Vasquez's gravestone, the inscription read, "Beloved mother, she worked hard so her children could dream." Elena had honored that sacrifice, had fought for those dreams, had paid a terrible price, but achieved something meaningful. And now, finally, she could rest. The butterfly had emerged from her cocoon, battered, scarred, but finally free to fly.